Welcome to Madness and More. Today, we're going to be learning the AP Biology Chapter 2, the chemical basis of life. So, this video will be going over the whole chapter. You might be wondering, why do we start biology with chemistry? The answer is because the basis of all life is chemistry. Chemicals make up the bodies of all living organisms and the physical environment. So, chemicals are all around us in the natural environment, and they're inside us. For example, the enzymes that break down all our food are chemicals. The water that we drink is essentially a chemical. Chemical reactions underlie the functions of cells. So there are many chemical reactions that happen on our cells that help us live our daily lives. For example, all of the enzymes that break down our food react with the food and therefore give us energy. Life and chemistry are tied to water. Life began here and all life depends on it. If we were to not have access to water, we wouldn't make it. We need water. Living organisms are composed of about 25 chemical elements, and carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen make up the bulk of the living matter. Trace elements are essential to life but are needed in minute amounts. So, trace elements are added to food and water to make sure we have a supplement of those. Right here, you can see that the cereal here has iron added to it. Iron is a trace element, but we need to get some of it. We also see other trace elements like zinc, and there are many other examples in the nutrition facts. What you also see is this lady here, and she is being affected by a dietary deficiency. Dietary deficiencies in trace elements can cause various physiological conditions. Do you know what the missing element in this lady's diet is? It's iodine. Iodine causes the condition of goiter. Here you can see the lady has goiter, which is the enlargement of a thyroid gland. Elements can combine to form compounds. Chemical elements combined in fixed ratios to form compounds. Here you can see chalky soft solid sodium, and you can see the toxic gas chlorine being added together to create table salt, which is sodium chloride. Discuss atoms, protons, neutrons, and electrons. The atom is the smallest particle of matter that still retains the properties of the element. Protons are positive and neutrons are neutral in the nucleus. Electrons are negative and they orbit the nucleus. Isotopes have a different number of neutrons. Some are radioactive and are useful as tracers. The atomic number of an atom is the number of protons it has. The mass number is the protons plus neutrons because it is the mass of the nucleus. The nucleus consists of protons and neutrons. The other thing to keep in mind is that if an atom is balanced, that would mean that it has an equal number of electrons and protons. Because to balance the atom out, you need the same number of positives and negatives. If you have an unbalanced atom, then you may have a different number of protons or electrons. Diagnostic tests. So radioactive tracers that we learned about on the last slide are often used for diagnosis in a combination with sophisticated imaging instruments. Radioactive isotopes have many beneficial uses, but uncontrolled exposure to them can harm living organisms. So here in figure 2.5a, you see a patient being imaged, and in image 2.5b, you see the healthy person's brain compared to an Alzheimer's patient brain. So the PET image of brains of a healthy person toward the left and a person with Alzheimer's disease toward the right, and they have red and yellow colors indicating the high levels of PIB bound to beta amyloid plaques, which are the plaques that destroy the brain. If you're very interested in Alzheimer's, we have a separate video about that, and the link can be found in the description box below. So ionic bonds are attractions between ions of opposite charges. When atoms gain or lose electrons, ions are created. So here you can see an ionic bond. You see over here that a sodium atom is giving away its one electron right here to complete its shell, and it is given to the chlorine atom. So now they both have complete outer shells. This creates sodium chloride, which is equal to table salt. So let me write that so that you can write it in your notes. The blank notes can be found in the description as well. So if you want to follow along, you may use them. So this is basically what your table salt atom looks like. All right. So covalent bonds are different types of bonds, and they join atoms into molecules through electron sharing. So this means that both the atoms would share electrons. So when two atoms share more one pair of outer shell electrons, that is what is called a covalent bond. In this image here, you see that there is a covalent bond in this place, this place, this place, this place. So these are carbon and hydrogen, and carbon and hydrogen have 4 bonds. So there's 4 pairs of bonds, and they're sharing electrons. So pop quiz, what is a CH4 equal to? If you said methane, that is correct. So now let's learn in more detail about polar covalent, nonpolar covalent, and hydrogen bonds. Hydrogen bonds are also known as H bonds. So nonpolar covalent bonds are when covalently bonded atoms share electrons equally. So an example of this is CO2, and what this means is that the electrons spend their time or go around all of the atoms that are bonded together equal times. So now there are polar covalent bonds, and electrons are shared unequally between atoms, creating a polar molecule. So an example of this is H2O. So how this is different from nonpolar covalent bonds is that in this bond, the electrons like to spend their time more around the oxygen atom compared to the hydrogen atom, because the oxygen atom is negative, and therefore electrons are attracted towards the oxygen. So this means that the electrons spend more time with the oxygen, and so the electrons are shared unequally. So hopefully this helps you remember the difference between nonpolar and polar covalent bonds. Next are hydrogen bonds. So hydrogen bonds are important in the chemistry of life because charged regions on water molecules are attracted to the oppositely charged regions on a nearby water molecule. So this would mean that the hydrogen atom in a H2O molecule is attracted to an oxygen atom of a other water molecule, and an oxygen atom of one water molecule is attracted to the hydrogen atom of the other molecule. In detail about hydrogen bonds result on water's life-supporting properties. Hydrogen bonds make liquid water cohesive, which means that water sticks to water. This property allows water to move from roots to leaves. This action happens through adhesion and cohesion. So adhesion is when water sticks to other materials, and cohesion is when water sticks to water. So adhesion allows the water to move up the stem from the roots to the leaves, and cohesion allows all the water to collect. Insects can walk on water due to the surface tension created by cohesion. So when water sticks to water, that creates a high surface tension, allowing insects to walk on water. So hydrogen bonds also help moderate temperature. So this takes a lot of energy to disrupt hydrogen bonds. So water can absorb lots of heat without a large rise in temperature. And as water cools, a slight drop in temperature releases a large amount of heat. Water molecules take energy with them when they evaporate. And so this is called evaporative cooling. So to summarize this, to change the temperature of water is difficult because of its hydrogen bonds. So it's easy for water to cool down compared to water being heated up. Now, as we know, 70% of the planet is covered by water. So if water heated up fast, that would mean that our Earth's temperature would fluctuate in very large amounts. So therefore, water's ability to moderate temperature is a life-supporting property. Let's continue with water's life-supporting properties. So ice is less dense than liquid water. Hydrogen bonds hold molecules in ice further apart than in liquid water. And as we know, the further apart the molecules in any matter, the less the density. So the further apart the molecules in ice compared to liquid water, the less dense it is. This allows the ice to float in water, and floating ice protects lakes and oceans from freezing solid. Has one more life-supporting property. Water is the solvent of life. More solutes are dissolved by water than by any other solvent. And polar or charged solutes dissolve when water molecules surround them, and they form aqueous solutions. An aqueous solution is when anything is dissolved by the water to create a new solution. And you can use the saying like dissolves like. For example, water does not dissolve lipids. So that's why when you have something greasy on your hands, for example, you eat something oily and have oil on your hand and you try to wash it off, it doesn't come off with water. What do you need? You need soap. Soap is also a type of lipid, so it takes off the oil and is rinsed off by the water. It is not dissolved by the water, but it is rinsed off. Life is sensitive to acidic and basic conditions. A compound that releases H plus ions, also known as hydrogen positive ions, in a solution is an acid. And a compound that releases um, OH minus ions or accepts H positive ions in a solution is a base. So it's easy to remember it as releasing hydrogen positive ions is acids, and accepting hydrogen positive ions is a base, because I like to keep it in terms of one, but you do need to know the other, which is OH minus ions. So acidity and alkalinity, which is a base, is measured on a pH scale of factor 10 scale. So these values range from 0, which is most acidic, to 14, which is most basic or alkaline. And the pH of most cells is kept close to 7, which is a neutral, and by buffers or substances that resist pH change, these cells are kept at 7. So in the diagram, you see here, on the top is it is an acidic solution. So this is when you have more hydrogen positive bonds than OH minus ions. So when you have more hydrogen positive ions, you release these hydrogen positive ions. And when you have less OH minus ions, you accept them. So this means that acidic solutions accept OH minus ions. You then see a neutral solution, and this has an equal amount or close to equal amount of H positive ions and OH minus ions. And then you see an alkaline solution or basic solution, and this has way more OH minuses than H positive ions. And on the scale, you can see a few acidic, neutral, and basic substances. Human body's natural buffer is bicarbonate. So, a carbonic acid is made by a bicarbonate ion and a hydrogen ion. So, H positive ion and a HCO3 ion. So blood in the human body must stay in a very narrow pH. So 7.4 is your optimal pH, and death may occur outside the range of 7 to 7.8 range. Now, bicarbonate carbonic acid regulates and stabilizes body pH by donating H positive ions, which are hydrogen ions if too basic, or it accepts hydrogen ions if it is too acidic. So you always kind of want to balance it out. So buffers balance it out. Balance your pH out. So what happens if pH is too high? Well, carbonic acid dissociates and releases hydrogen ions. And if pH is too low, then bicarbonate picks up stray hydrogen ions and forms carbonic acid. So acidic conditions threaten many environments. In water, coral reef weakening is caused because 25% of carbon dioxide in air is absorbed by oceans. High CO2 in water produces carbonic acid. The excess hydrogen ions combine with carbonate to make bicarbonate. So this depletes the supply of carbonate that corals and other shell-building animals need to make their calcium carbonate shells. This often results in coral reef weakening, and you may have heard of coral reef bleaching, which is when these coral reefs sadly die and lose their color. On land, acid precipitation is a problem. It is formed when air pollutants from burning fossil fuels combine with water vapor in the air, and sulfur and nitric acids are combined. So these acids can kill trees and damage buildings, and an altered pH for land animal supply. So we need to balance our pH, and so do other animals and living organisms, and precipitation often changes that supply. Chemical reaction. Reactants interact, atoms rearrange, and products result. So this is a summary of the whole lesson. So in the image here, in the diagram, you see these 4 hydrogen atoms, and they make up 2H2. And here you see 1 O2, but these are 2 oxygen atoms, and these rearrange and create H2O. So in this example, my 2 reactants are my 4 hydrogen atoms, my 2 oxygen atoms. Both of those are reactants. They rearrange and create the product 2H2O. Living cells carry out thousands of chemical reactions that rearrange matter in significant ways, and that is biochemistry. Our next video lesson is Chapter 3, Biochemistry. Many AP courses do the chemistry of life and biochemistry together. I splitted them up into 2 different videos, so you can watch the biochemistry video, and that will be in the description box below. And we will discuss the molecules of cells. If you would like to follow along with our video lessons, you can always find a blank notes presentation in the description below, so you can print it or you can download it. It will download as a PowerPoint, and you can edit it and follow along as you watch the lesson. I know those can serve as great notes for you to review before your next test. And if you ever have questions, you can always reach out to us at mathnessandmore@gmail.com, or you can visit our YouTube channel page or website and find a contact us form and reach out to us there. Thank you for watching, and I would love to hear your reviews in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.